This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to Paranormal Stakeout. I'm your host, Larry Lawson, coming to you, as always, from the Southern Command Post of the X-Zone Broadcast Network in beautiful Vero Beach and Fellsmere, Florida. It's great to be back after a long week, and once again, a very difficult week for all of us. Thoughts and prayers go out to everybody in Las Vegas. I tell you, sometimes I wonder what's going on with this crazy world today, and I guess maybe that's where we're going to head tonight. We're going to talk about what's going on. What are some of the things that we just don't understand? And tonight I've got a terrific guest, Mr. Paul Eno. And Paul was one of the first paranormal investigators from the early 1970s. He began studying the paranormal during his study for the priesthood. His early mentors included parapsychology pioneer Dr. Louisa Rhine, Father John J. Nicola S.J., who was the technical advisor for the film The Exorcist, and the legendary first-generation ghost hunters Ed and Lorraine Warren. Paul graduated from 2 seminaries, but was expelled from a third because of his paranormal work with less than 2 years to go before ordination. He ended up as an award-winning New England journalist and the author of 8 books on the paranormal and 2 on history. 2 of his latest books in the paranormal was Behind the Paranormal, Everything You Know Is Wrong, followed up by Behind the Paranormal 2, Bigfoot, Mothman, and Monsters You've Never Heard of. Paul Eno, welcome to Paranormal Stakeout, my friend.
Oh, thank you very much, Larry.
Kind of excited to have you on tonight. And I got to ask you, that one of the things that fascinates me about you and your work was your beginning in the priesthood. Now, I've personally been asked a number of times by folks, your paranormal work goes against the Bible. You're not supposed to do that. In these first few minutes, I'd be really interested to hear how you combine the two, and if there was a conflict or a commonality.
That's a loaded question.
It is.
Certainly,
it is.
Larry. I graduated from 2 seminaries. The reason for multiple seminaries is the academic level at which you
Sure.
are, and the third one was graduate level. And the problem was that they thought I should have my nose in my books, and I shouldn't have been doing this. However, the second seminary faculty, I should clarify, the first 2 were Roman Catholic, and the last one was Eastern Orthodox. Okay, so that was a different church, really. But the seminary faculty at the second one was very sympathetic. They had me working with an exorcist and everything else. However, I'm not saying that, and this is well over 40 years ago, I'm not saying I believe what I was taught necessarily or believe it in the same way. People are always blaming me for not espousing their religious beliefs today. Now, because actually the question is, and I'm giving a talk on this very subject on Saturday, is it okay to believe in the paranormal if you belong to a religious group, or what is the relationship between religion and the paranormal, or between God and the paranormal for that matter, because God and religion aren't necessarily the same thing at all. I really, as my personal spiritual life expanded, hopefully in the right direction, I began to see less and less conflict. It's funny, today, a lot of Orthodox seminarians and priests and nuns are in touch with us, listen to our show, because they say, gee, this multiverse thing, this idea of parallel worlds rather than just some spirit world and some material world, really is quite compatible with the Orthodox point of view. And you know who is most amenable to it are the Muslims.
Interesting.
Yeah, they have a very cosmic outlook on the universe and the world. The Quran talks about the existence of other worlds, and I just think that it all depends on what religion you're talking about as far as whether it's acceptable or not. So,
absolutely. I mean, I frankly grew up in the Protestant side of the house, and you just did not talk about these types of things.
Oh no.
And so Exactly. So I still commonly get that question. Well, your work that you're doing goes against what the Bible teaches, that you're not supposed to do that. Yet on the same hand, I've had the same experience you have, where folks that are in the leadership of certain religions do find it fascinating and actually believe themselves and don't even find the conflict between the Bible and the study. So
well, the Bible is another question. What does it really say? We don't know what the original words actually were. How do you interpret it? And that's a whole other issue.
That is entirely another issue. But I want to start talking to you about this multiverse theory. First of all, tell me what your theory, before we get there, what's your theory on what a ghost is?
Well, I don't think, at least in most cases, or maybe not in any case, it's a spirit of the dead. Why do I think that? Well, back in the 70s, I was encountering ghosts, wearing clothes, driving cars, ghosts of people who hadn't died yet, ghosts of people, seeing ghosts of themselves. And I said, this whole idea of spirits of the dead, this two-dimensional spiritualist approach, just isn't good enough. And so I began to wonder, well, what could these be? Could this be more about time than about death? And the very first case, I'm running into an invisible ox cart. I mean, seven of us witnessed this.
Before you do that, before you get into that, because I don't want to cut you off in the middle of that story, we're getting ready to take our first break here. So, folks, like you to stay with us. Got Mr. Paul Eno with us. Fascinating subject. So stick with us as we take this first break, and come on back to Paranormal Stakeout.
This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember, 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365.
I am Dr. Carl O'Helvey, founder, president of a new cancer foundation focusing on evidence-based physical, mental, and spiritual interventions, including natural cancer cures, prayer, meditation, affirmations, nutrition, and other related holistic cancer prevention and cure modalities. These are used in cancer education, research, and financing care. I ask for your help to continue this important work by donating at www.holisticcancerfoundation.com.
Is it science or is it magic? Once a magical thing has been scientifically proven, is it no longer magic? Or is magic simply the science of tomorrow? Join me, Gwilda Wiyaka, on The Science of Magic, a syndicated radio program dedicated to combining the science and magic of today's dynamic and controversial topics to co-create new solutions. By triangulating information from today's leading experts from the scientific and magical fields, we uncover expansive and evolutionary truths you won't find anywhere else. Join us daily on the X Zone Broadcast Network, xzbn.net, as I interview the share thoughts with the amazing guests from both science and magic. The resulting knowledge is unprecedented. As a gift to you, the listener, past episodes can be accessed on our website free of charge at thescienceofmagic.net.
Little children aren't the only ones afraid of the dark. Millions of soldiers return from war zones with PTSD, anger, frustration, fear, and loneliness, much of which surfaces during the darkness of the night. You have the chance to change the lives of these American heroes. Songs and Stories for Soldiers.us provides free MP3 players for these men and women. With a list of 3 million songs in 16 different styles, 100,000 audiobooks, and 30,000 old-time radio programs, every veteran can find something to soothe and comfort them at no cost. All our players contain an 8-hour audio program designed to help veterans fall asleep. With 1,500 plus vets now participating, it's our goal to deliver 10,000 audio players this year. Go to our website at songsandstoriesforsoldiers.us. Help us help a veteran make it through the night.
Welcome back to Paranormal Stakeout, folks, with my guest, Paul Eno. And it is Dr. Eno. You have a PhD?
Well, no, I'm not a doctor. PhD it's equivalent to a master's degree.
Gotcha. Okay, Paul.
Yeah. In Europe.
Okay. This issue of parallel universes in the paranormal research field is something that's really taken the field by storm right now. Many people are talking about it. I find the topic quite fascinating. And you were about ready just before the last break to go into your first story regarding what is the multiverse? Explain what that is first. Let's do that.
Well, essentially, it's the idea comes from a doctoral candidate's theory from the 1950s. A man's name was Elliot, a student at Princeton, and he said all the math seems to add up to parallel worlds, not necessarily dimensions, but worlds. The parallel dimension is often used as a same term as parallel worlds. That's not really accurate. Okay. But what essentially it is there seems to be a rather elegant interaction and I suppose reality or creation, whatever you want to call it, of not just one universe, but perhaps an infinite number, containing, according to some interpretations, many versions of us, and in concrete reality, every possibility that could exist. For example, on our Halloween show, we often we'll talk about Linus and the Great Pumpkin, something, and that if such a creature did not exist or something like it somewhere or somewhen in this multiverse, then Charles Schulz, the cartoonist, never would have been able to think of it.
Well,
that's one possibility.
But isn't that what people view as a dimension? I mean.
Well, yeah, possibly, but within worlds there are certain dimensions. For example, in our world, the law it all depends on the laws of physics, and one of the key components here is that from world to world in this multiverse, the laws of physics may be very different, which is why I think I was standing with those first responders in that house in Bridgeport, Connecticut in 1974, and the refrigerator floated and a bunch of other things happened. Perhaps there was we believe that in areas where this happens, there are overwashes, overlaps, intersect points between worlds with not only different laws of physics, but perhaps different inhabitants, which is a lot of the explanation for what I think people think they're seeing ghosts. Uncle George, skipping down the hallway a year after his funeral, you may be having an intersect point in a world where it still is, and there is no was. Einstein proved in 1952, essentially, that all time and space are simultaneous. There is no past, there is no future. So when you're seeing Uncle George, you may be at an intersect point where it's really him, skipping down the hallway in a parallel world where he never died, or even in what to us is the past, but it's still parallel, still simultaneous. It's a lot of stuff to get the mind around.
It is. Now, I understand that, people, not everybody believes in ghosts. We can't prove ghosts exist. For example, I know that I've seen what I believe to be a full body apparition. I can't prove it, but I know what I saw. This topic you're discussing here, theoretical as it is, is there any scientific proof? And if there is, how was it obtained?
Well, a lot of the entire question of proof is problematic, Larry, because what constitutes proof? The scientific method on which all our thought is based is essentially a materialist one. In other words, it's scientific materialism. Every process that we see is essentially that we experience is essentially matter and the interactions with other matter, and of course, energy permits that interaction. So, but the question is, just like the old spiritualist theories of ghosts, you have to ask the same question: is this good enough? And I know many scientists, and the trouble is they don't talk to each other from one field to another very often. And the main concern of some of them anyway is grants and tenure. And so they don't want to stick their necks out. The two physicists who will come on our show are Dr. Fred Alan Wolf and Dr. Amit Goswami, who are so famous that they don't have to worry about grants or tenure, and they don't care what anybody thinks. So, so they agree with us, essentially, not in every point, but essentially. And again, my degree is in philosophy, not physics, but this is what we see. Sitting in the paranormal, we being my son and myself, sitting in the paranormal trenches, in my case, for the last 47 years. So scientific proof, you could ask, okay, what did you love your father? And you say, well, sure. Well, and then somebody might say, prove it. You can't prove. There are things that are outside of science. And I think this may be one of them. And maybe our idea of science has to change, never mind our idea of the paranormal. Well,
and I couldn't agree with you more on that. I mean, we've got to find a coming together of all of the disciplines. And there's no question that, ghosts, you can't prove ghosts exist either, despite all our efforts and all our assertions. We can't prove a ghost exists. Excuse me. I guess what I'm getting at is, where do we leave the traditional view of what ghosts are and move into this multi-universe? Is it just a theory, or where are you getting it from?
Well, the things that really pushed me, kind of knocked me sideways here, were two cases, Larry, in the 1970s. One, of course, is this Bridgeport case where I had a physical altercation with something that was supposed to be a spirit. And you don't expect to have physical altercation or something like that. I was trying to protect this little girl. Ed and Lorraine Warren were working on this case. And that really, the physicality of many of these phenomena really just called into question a lot of the spiritualist beliefs that I had even as a seminary student. And then in 79, when I encountered a case in Maine where it was the ghost of someone, a girl who apparently, her ghost was haunting a house and she wasn't even dead. That really, and I talked to the people who were experiencing her because they happened to meet, and there was great terror resulted from this meeting from the people who thought she was a ghost. It was really, really bizarre. And so I said, there has to be some other explanation. And at this point, Dr. Goswami and others were writing, and for Dr. Wolf were writing books for the popular reader about quantum mechanics. And I ran into the theory of parallel worlds. And this is where I said, this is the only thing that really explains what I'm seeing here out in the trenches. And then as the years went by, I did more research, talked to some physicists, and then to them personally, both off our show and on our show. And there seems to be some agreement that this is at least one possibility for explaining the paranormal.
Okay. I want to go back to the Bridgeport, Connecticut event. Give us a little more details on what happened during that investigation, and tell me what about it made you think it was not a spirit, but this multiverse, this other world.
Well, this case, I was a 21-year-old seminary student, and the case, as they always do, began to build up slowly. Our theory is that these are not demons. These are parasitical entities that will feed between worlds, and among the things they eat are human emotions, I suppose, if we want to put it that, or the energy produced therefrom. Now, Bridgeport, Connecticut, little house, 1973, it really started with some knocking on the walls, this sort of thing. They would hear footsteps. And again, at least as we think of it, as you get more frightened, more annoyed, more angry, they feed upon that and get stronger. So by November 23rd and 24th, 1974, the family, which was just a elderly, not elderly, but a middle-aged couple in their 40s, blue collar, having adopted a Native American girl from Ontario, Canada, 10 years old, nobody else in the family. They were having things moving around the house. The televisions were falling off shelves onto the beds. The first thing that happened when I was there was a huge chest of drawers moved and smashed against the wall in the little girl's room. Now, one of the neighbors was an off-duty Bridgeport police officer. He called in Lorraine Warren, who lived in a nearby town less than 10 miles away. So as luck would have it, I was on Thanksgiving vacation from the seminary in upstate New York, and I was headed down to have dinner with Ed and Lorraine, expecting a quiet afternoon. Now, Lorraine was a really terrific cook. Maybe she still is. I was she's in her 90s, but I never got my dinner because she came leaping out the door as soon as I drove up and said, "Are you in a high spiritual state right now?" And I was not by any means, but naturally I said, "Oh yes, sure I am." So off we go down to this house. And the place was a complete disaster. And over the better part of 3 days, there were all sorts of police witnesses to things going on. It's in their official police reports. Reporters who supposedly are trained observers were coming in. We had network reporters from New York. In those ancient times, there was only ABC, NBC, and ABC. Today, it's funny because after the seminary, I became a journalist, and I have been for the last 35, 40 years. I would never call in the press. And the first thing Warren did was call on the media. Among the things I saw were, of course, this refrigerator floating in the presence of police and firefighters, tables jumping across the room. I was hit in the leg by a flying television set. I witnessed a second-degree burn spontaneously appear on Lorraine Warren's hand. There were all small things happening all the time. And then, of course, on Monday night of the case, this horrific encounter with this entity who ended up throwing the little girl across the room after it had this physical altercation with me. It got around me and did that. And there was more to it than that as well. Okay. And I began to wonder the physicality of this, and they didn't feel like evil. There were four entities, I felt, and they felt almost like alien. That's the best word I can think of to describe these entities. They didn't seem like anything theological. They just seemed completely alien, and they would come and go.
But this was a feeling. This is
just a feeling.
I can't prove it.
Exactly.
Being a cop, I get hunches, so I don't discount that at all. But but nothing other than that hunch, that gut feeling, it sort of took you away from from the spiritual world. No, but instead it's another dimension or multi-universe.
Well, I hadn't quite gotten there yet. I hadn't really encountered those ideas yet, but it was the physical altercation that really knocked me sideways because a spirit is by definition and a bodiless entity. It's non-corporeal. It's non-material. But I could feel bone structure in this thing. And I didn't know what to do with it. And I was confused, and I learned the hard way. You don't get angry or annoyed in the presence of these things because it knocked her across the room, and it got so strong that I pulled the family out of the house. The Warrens weren't there. They were off doing some TV interview, and the police fortunately had cordoned off the street because there were several thousand people at any one time outside this house. Had we walked out into the middle of a crowd, heaven only knows what would have happened. But I wanted to let the energy dissipate. It took the Warrens, I had to go to another house to use a telephone, long before the days of cell phones here. And it took them over an hour to get back into the city, and it wasn't that far away because of all the crowds and traffic created by this, because Warren had put it out all over the news. So, again, it just really threw me for a loop. And then in the main case in 1979, a few years later, this girl, the people in the house being terrified because they said, and the girl, they've been driving by in a car, and the girl said, "Stop the car, that's my house." And her friends were saying, "What? What do you mean? You're not even from Maine." And up she ran to the porch, knocked on the door, and the woman answered, screamed when she saw the girl, and the man eventually told the girl that she should feel it's her house. She haunts it. They would see her in transparent form doing different things in the house. She was having dreams in Connecticut simultaneously of doing things in the house that they were seeing her doing. Okay. Although very, very interestingly, not at the same time she was having the dreams. Mm-hmm. But I let that pass because I was dazzled by all this other stuff. So today I might say that they were having the parallel experiences of the same concurrent universes.
Well, I've spoken with some folks, and we're going to get ready to take our first break here in a second, but I've spoken with folks that are doing research into the human mind, the brain, and what we don't know about it, and come to the theory that folks can actually have out-of-body experiences that other people mistake as spirits, as ghosts.
Yes.
So that would take away from your multi-universe theory a little bit, but
possibly.
But at any rate, we're going to get ready, Paul. Great conversation. I want to get back. We're about ready to take our next break. So, folks, stay with us. Myself, Dr. Paul Eno on Paranormal Stakeout. Come on back. We got more to talk about.
This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
How would you like to be able to read other people's minds? Well, the next best thing is here. When you know how to read a person's name, you know how the person thinks, feels, and behaves. Each letter in our name holds a key to unlock our true essence. Our name contains both our gifts and challenges in this lifetime. Nemology science discovers personality secrets hidden in the placement of the letters of our names, including the first and last impression people remember about us. Sharon shows us how to interpret the arrangement of letters as outlined in her book, Know the Name, Know the Person. Sharon Lynn Wyeth created nemology science after 18 years of research and testing her theories, and has supported thousands of people around the world in understanding themselves and others better. You'll enjoy Sharon's unique teachings as she shares her system to learn the gifts behind your given birth name. Even if you don't like your birth name, there are jewels in this book. If you're thinking of changing your name, ready to name your child, or wanting to get along better with others, this is the book for you. If you'd like to improve your relationships and change your life for the better, get the book today, Know the Name, Know the Person, or visit www.knowthename.com. That's www.knowthename.com.
Hello, I'm Justina Marsh, and with my dad Pete, we are going to present a new show called Too Good to Be True. Together, we are aiming to discover more truths about this world and beyond. Do you have unanswered questions about the world? Do you ever wonder about aliens, conspiracy theories, or the universe? There are many shows discussing subjects such as pyramids or UFOs, but we want to relay this information based on our own research, including from spiritual means. Hopefully, listeners will be helped with their own beliefs and will appreciate the psychic insights that add to the previous research and information. We both look forward to sharing this insight and beginning this journey with our listeners. Visit xzbn.net for more information about when to listen.
Ancient prophecies, legends, and current events indicate we're entering a high-frequency era supporting enlightenment. During expansive times, old rules fail, necessitating access to the ever-shifting currents of life for guidance. There's an ancient form of shamanism through which we can obtain the information we need. I'm Gwilda Wiyaka, founder and director of Path Home Shamanic Art School, with a great new provision for those interested in spiritual evolution and personal empowerment. Galactic Shamanism, Art of the Ancients, Key to Tomorrow, is an upcoming series of leading-edge online affordable classes designed to guide and support you and your family during these times of transition. Embrace the magic. Empower your life. Study Galactic Shamanism at findyourpathhome.com.
This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
And we're back on Paranormal Stakeout with my guest tonight, Paul Eno, discussing the theories of multi-universe and the paranormal. Getting back to what we were discussing before the break, Paul, there's a lot of folks in the paranormal field that's looking at this, the power of our own mind creating our own evidence. And that story you just told about the young lady who was seen in another house, haunted the other house while she's still alive, seems to fit that theory also. How do you see that fitting into your thoughts on the multi-universe, the power of our own mind?
Yeah, I just have to correct you on one thing, Larry. It's not doctor. Okay, I can never afford the degree. So
sorry about that, Paul.
Not at all. Mister's fine. So it's a matter of you may be right. It may or may not affect the idea of the out of the body experience as astral projection. But astral projection is essentially a construct that came out of spiritualism, and there really isn't any evidence for that either. So I mean, it's a matter of choice what you want to do. I knew D. Scott Rogo pretty well. He died in the 1980s. As a matter of fact, I was working in the newsroom with the Providence Journal, and the news came in that he had been murdered. Terrible shock. First I'd heard of it, but he did a lot of research on out-of-the-body experiences, he and Keith Harari, who actually is Dr. Keith Harari. And there was an attempt at projection, and Scott actually saw Keith in his house, this sort of thing. Yeah, maybe it is astral projection, but again, why are the people seen wearing clothes? Do we have astral clothes and things of this kind? Maybe, but I still think it has more to do with experiencing parallel realities where the person is just existing at that time. And again, it's a matter of choice, but I think the astral idea is a bit outmoded, and that's just my opinion.
And you know, that's the one thing about the paranormal field. We're all working in theory right now because nobody has come up with a definitive answer. So you're right. It's how people are looking at it.
But if I may just expand on that point a bit based on your question, Larry, the idea of what people bring to the experience is, I think, a very important one. Mm-hmm. My particular Bigfoot experience, totally unexpected, I was looking for something else, last September, was very different from the experience of some people in that area.
And I want to make sure we talk about that a little bit later in the show. I want to hear more about that. How do you theorize these dimensions are suddenly intertwining?
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with, oddly enough, the geotechnics of the site. We've done a lot of research in the what is known as the Bouguer anomaly, which is a gravitational anomaly. Again, this may have nothing to do with it, but we just there are a lot of suspicious clues in there. And that's a gravity anomaly that's present in every flap area that we have investigated. And again, maybe coincidence, maybe not. But it's a gravitational anomaly whereby when you walk into a river valley or the farther downhill you go, the lighter the gravity becomes, something you wouldn't expect. But that's because of the elements in the soil, things of this kind. And we find that is where strange space-time anomalies tend to occur. And what did Einstein essentially prove? That gravity bends space and time, which are essentially the same thing. So you've got a simultaneous past to future, which really isn't past to future. It's all simultaneous. We just experience it past to future. And gravitational anomalies that can bend this. And this is where a lot of these phenomena seem to occur. Why is it? that every family certainly has its stresses and strains, but not every family has something playing frisbee with their fine china. Some families do, and we will almost always find there is some sort of gravitational anomaly, clay or sandy soils, which are in high water tables, which conduct electromagnetic energy, and that all these various ducts are lined up, and that the people bring something to the phenomena. There may be entities, there may not be. It's on a case-by-case basis, but there are a lot of scientific clues that can indicate when paranormal phenomena are going to occur, if you want to even call them paranormal.
Well, and there's certainly standard belief in the paranormal investigative field that the things you describe do come into play when evidence is found of the paranormal. Ghosts are seen, voices are heard, whatnot. Gravitational sunspots, does that play into your theory at all?
Yes, because the moon, the cycles of the moon, gravitation is a factor there. Certainly, sunspots affect the electrical. The Earth's magnetic field, things of this kind. And also, I think, just to finish the point that you began to make, Larry, I think, again, what people bring to these things, we always ask when something weird is going, regardless of the geotechnic factors, regardless of the weather, the sunspots, whatever time of year, what is it, when did this begin? Let's say 3-4 years ago, as far as a negative experience. And I'll say, okay, well, what changed in your life at that time? When these things began, what are you doing that's feeding this? People very often want you just to come in and fix it. Well, that's really not how it works. People have to contribute. And you did make the very excellent point that maybe the investigators bring something to this as well as the experiencers. There
absolutely.
is a very often thought that, you see people on TV, the temperature's going up, or going down rather. Well, they may be causing that. The EVP phenomenon, electronic voice phenomena, which it's too bad my son isn't with us. He has a degree in audio engineering. He has a lot of opinions on EVPs. That could be projections, possibly. Because if you're dealing with a ghost, you have no body, therefore no vocal cords. How do you get a voice? So these are all questions that are good questions.
And once again, part of that theory that I've seen, I actually worked on in last year in Fellsmere during one of our events. One of our guests took a group and did an experiment with them working, using a word in their mind, not mentioning it, but then tried an EVP. And the word that they were thinking, actually, I didn't hear it, but many people heard that word come out on an audio recorder.
Sure.
Once again, so are we talking about a multiverse, or are we just talking about the unexplored depths and the power of our own mind?
I think all of the above, Larry. And we're talking as well about undiscovered science as well. It's the first day of school. I think what we have to avoid is seeing things from a very narrow human paradigm. We see what we think, what to us is a ghost. It's got to be the spirit of someone who died. What else could it be? But there are many other possibilities. The multiverse thing is just one of those. In our experience, it's the one that seems to work the best as far as explaining the phenomena. But maybe we're fooling ourselves. I don't know.
And I'm having some trouble, I'll be honest with you, understanding how they can flit in and out between the dimensions at specific times. Now, I believe in having an open mind. I'm willing to discuss any theory, but I'm having it's almost too convenient to me in a way.
Yeah,
now,
it's all circumstantial, really.
It's all of it is circumstantial, and that goes regardless of what side of the paranormal fence you're on. But I'm just finding it difficult to see how these crossovers, if you will, are happening just at the right time. But I lack another explanation myself. So,
well, we can approach it from the back door and point out that the notion of the spiritual manifestation, a completely non-corporeal being, really is not possible with the laws of physics in our world. Mm-hmm. if there are parallel worlds where the laws of physics are very different, some of that might be possible. But I just think the whole notion of, you look at the science such as it is behind the multiverse theory, and there really are not any physicists I'm aware of who don't believe it in some form or another. It's being used to construct quantum computers, for example. So the multiverse theory is really not a theory anymore. The concepts have been applied in practical ways. The question is, how do you interpret it, and can you interpret it all the way to paranormal phenomena? We think you can, but we could be wrong. The entire idea of cryptozoology, for example, where does Bigfoot, say, if there is such a thing, come from, and where does it go? In our areas where we research this, very often it's farm country. You don't have big wilderness areas. You've got woodlots and open fields and some farmhouses, and still they're seeing Bigfoot. We have neighborhood meetings where 20 and 30 people show up, and they're seeing Bigfoot and seeing strange lights in the sky. They can't all be bonkers, right?
Okay, so strange lights in the sky. So, and that was where I was going to go to next. Do you pull the UFO phenomenon into this?
Well, it kind of pulled me into it.
Okay.
We would be investigating haunted houses, quote unquote, and something told me, go outside in the yard. If you can talk to the neighbors, go talk to the neighbors. And almost invariably, the neighbors would be having similar problems. If you check the MUFON records for that particular time and place, very often there's a spike in UFO sightings. You might find Bigfoot sightings, all sorts of seemingly unrelated paranormal phenomena going on in the same area. Sometimes a very small area. In Wisconsin is what our friend Linda Godfrey calls the Jefferson County Square of weirdness. You've got upright canine cryptids. You've got ghosts. You've got UFOs. You've got people with heightened psychic abilities, and having, et cetera, et cetera. So, I mean, we think the only explanation is the multiverse and intercepting.
Then let me ask you this. Is there a database that's been put together and available that shows all of these things happening in one spot at one time? Or is it just people talking?
We're working very slowly toward that. I refer you, of course, to our good friends Lon Strickler and Albert Rosales, who have databases of reports. Okay, but what we're working on is a Herculean task. You're covering flap areas that can be up to 200 square miles, as in the case of the Litchfield, Connecticut Triangle, as we call it.
What's a flap area?
A flap area is just what I described, areas of paranormal activity that don't seem to be related, that we think are because of the multiverse activity that's going on there and the military interest. And these are things that, like the Mothman phenomena of the 1960s in the Ohio Valley, wasn't just Mothman, which was the press dubbed it that. There were UFOs, there were supposedly men in black, all sorts of ghost phenomena going, poltergeist activity, this sort of thing. That's a flap area.
See, I find this all fascinating, but coming at it from my law enforcement background, I got to see the data. And so do we. And that's what I'm getting at here. I'm open to new ideas, but if we're saying all of these things are happening in one area, I got to see the data. I got to see that on this date and this time this happened, and at the same time this and the other thing happened. Oh, and by the way, there was a solar flare at that point, and a heavy geomagnetic storm. Do you see what I'm driving at?
I see exactly what you're driving at, and you're just as frustrated as we are with this.
Well, why can't we do it? Why can't we do it?
Because we don't have the money or the people to do it. In the case of of these flap areas, our show has a number of reporters. And we set up literally an observation network of people, preferably who don't know each other, and who feed us reports. But these are sometimes hundreds of miles from where we live. We're going through 12 years of police reports just on allegations of public changes in behavior in this particular area. You've got all kinds of witnesses who have to be interviewed. You have witnesses who have to be vetted. We have a behavioral scientist who works with us on this. It's a Herculean task. And that's why we've been working on this particular case for 12 years.
Well,
and we're only just beginning.
Who's your group? We
don't really work with a group because, the people are weird. It's my son, Ben, who joined me in 2005. This is one of his first cases. There's also Mark D'Antonio from MUFON. He's a real dyed-in-the-wool, genuine astronomer who was MUFON's national director of fluid video analysis.
I got to cut you short here, my friend. Okay. We're coming up on our last break. Folks, fascinating conversation. We got a lot to cover and a little time to do it. So come on back and join us for this last segment.
The Earth is under ever-increasing pressure from untenable lifestyles and growing populations. Yet, viable answers seem in short supply. What if I told you there's an ancient form that can empower you to take charge of your life? What if your entire family could be enfolded and supported by life itself, finding safe passage through challenging times? I'm Gwilda Wiyaka, founder and director of Path Home Shamanic Art School, with great news: an upcoming series of leading-edge online affordable classes based in an ancient form of shamanism, easily learned and used by your entire family. Galactic Shamanism, Art of the Ancients, Key to Tomorrow are a series of online adult and children's lessons instructing your entire family on natural law, how to cooperate with and be supported by the powers of the universe. Visit findyourpathhome.com to find these unique and powerful classes.
This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember, 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365.
Are you curious? Do you want to learn more about how the world works and have fun at the same time? Study coincidences with me, Dr. Bernie Beitman, MD, on my Connecting with Coincidence radio show, here on the XZBN network. Listen to Jungians theorize, statisticians randomize, true believers evangelize, while I categorize. I dance to the rhythm of coincidences. People who experience me see more of them. Maybe something on the show matches a thought in your mind. Let us know. Expand your mind to the weirdness happening around you. Synchronicity spoken here, there, and everywhere. For more information, put Connecting with Coincidence in your search engine and find my website, my social media sites, and my blog.
What is truth? Historically, we viewed things as either being true or false. Now, as we enter a more expansive era, we find the question is not, is it true, but rather, how true is it? I'm Gwilda Wiyaka, host of the Science of Magic Radio, a syndicated, internationally broadcast radio program dedicated to uncovering this ever-expanding truth. Join me daily on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, xzbn.net, as I interview today's leading experts from the fields of science and magic to uncover the hidden truth between the lines drawn in the sand. What we unearth in our discussions is not only amazing, but totally unprecedented. You won't want to miss a single episode. In service to our listeners, past episodes can always be found on our website with our compliments at thescienceofmagic.net.
Welcome back, everyone, to our last segment tonight with Mr. Paul Eno. NewEnglandGhosts.com is his website. He's the author of Behind the Paranormal, Everything You Know Is Wrong, and Behind the Paranormal 2, Bigfoot, Mothman, and Monsters You've Never Heard of. I invite you to go to his website and check out these books. This is some very interesting theories. Also would like everybody to take some time and go to www.xzbn.net, and check out the other terrific programming on the X Zone Broadcast Network. And go by and say hello to me at www.paranormalstakeout.com and say hello. Let me know what you think about the show. Also, you can check out my team at www.paranormalfbi.com. Wow, Paul, this is some heavy stuff and kind of shaking the paranormal investigative and research world around a little bit. You've covered a multitude of things today. We're talking a little bit about UFOs. We're talking about ghosts, cryptozoology. You had mentioned seeing a Bigfoot just recently, I think, right?
Well, yes. I tend to be kind of I try to be a feet on the ground, bookish kind of person. Ben does some of the weirder stuff. But no, in the Pennsylvania Triangle, as we call it, we've had several trips out there for lengths of time. September 16th of last year, it's 2016, I was sitting up in a field in my truck quite late at night. We'd gotten some photos of some strange lights in the sky the previous trip, and that's what I was looking for. All of a sudden, something grabbed my attention to the right through the closed window of my truck, because it was a kind of a chilly night. But I could see in the brilliant moonlight very clearly a very large figure on two legs walking. I remember the huge knees and legs going up and down in the tall grass, coming maybe about 200 feet from me, coming up the hill into the field. And the head was bowed as if looking for something. Then, after that occurred, I snapped a picture with the infrared camera through the cold window, naturally no heat signature. I went to get out. All of a sudden, my phone goes off. My wife called, closest I ever came to divorce, and said, people, Paul, turn off the phone next time. Well, I was a little new to the Bigfoot thing, but it was gone by that time. And all of a sudden, some lights came up in a tree across this field, and I was by myself. And they looked like perfectly ordinary spotlights or flashlights. So the next day, Shane Searway and I, was one of our gang, very, very good combination of a Blackfoot shaman and a feet-on-the-ground investigator, measured out some path that something in two legs had taken through this field, and some other stuff, measured out the whole area, mapped it out. And that night we had a neighborhood meeting, and there were up to 20. This is the second one we've had. Up to 20 people or more have shown up at these meetings, and all of them have had Bigfoot experiences in this area and strange lights, as well as some other things. Some people have ghost problems. And a hand went up when I told this story, and a woman named Melissa said, "Oh, that was my son and me. We were coming home, and we heard something big moving through that field. Their house is right next to the field. At the same time, I was seeing it, and they went up, and I said, 'Why were you flashing lights in the trees?' I said, 'Well, sometimes they're in the trees.'" So if that's what it appears to be, it seems to be corroboration of my sighting by people who heard it, for what it's worth. So that was my experience, and the totally unexpected knocked me for a loop.
Okay. Well, and that's been, and your theory again is that this Bigfoot, or whatever this creature was, crossed the plane, if you will, into our universe.
That's what indigenous people say it does. Okay, and I think they need to be listened to, because they have traditions, in some cases, going back tens of thousands of years.
No question about that. And like I said, I'm a true believer in having an open mind, but
yeah,
I've got to tell you one thing that's concerning me. I've spoken to folks that were in the paranormal field, dyed in the wool paranormal ghost hunters, if you will. After a while, they begin to embrace this alien ghost concept. And the flavor I get from it, Paul, is it is individuals attempting to reinvent themselves in order to stay relevant. And that concerns me, and I'm going to tell you why. Because regardless of what theory is correct, when folks do things to reinvent themselves to keep themselves relevant, it hurts everybody.
Yes. I trust them more if they're not making a living at this. Mm-hmm. If they don't have a vested interest in this being. I mean, I'm still a working journalist, in other areas too.
Right.
For what it's worth. But no, I agree, Larry. It's there are all sorts of concerning things in this field, but I think the most concerning thing that worries me is the narrowness of thinking.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so
there's no doubt about it. I mean, I find the projection theory very fascinating because the mind truly is something we have not fully explored yet. And I think for us to find the answer to what this phenomenon is having an open mind. But on the same token, I get concerned about people that have personal agendas. And that's what worries me, because I've talked to some people in the field that were, like I said, dyed in the wool ghost hunters. Now they're saying, well, it could be the aliens too. Worries me. Well,
that worries me. And what worries me just as much is the personal agendas that exist in science. As I say, the only two scientists who come on our show are so famous that they won't worry about grants or tenure, and they don't care what people think. I've addressed groups of psychiatrists on the idea that perhaps schizophrenia, at least in the forms that I saw it while working in psychiatric hospitals as a student, was possibly the experience of real parallel worlds that are really there, and it's not a chemical imbalance at all. And when they listen to me, the audience, they have the steam coming out of their ears. But so many of them will come up, it's amazing, at the end and say, I've often thought the same thing, but I can't say that because I'll lose my job. So there is dishonesty, and there's plenty of politics and science too, and that worries me just as much. Everything worries me. I don't know.
Well, tell me something. Ed and Lorraine Warren, I mean, the godparents, if you will, of modern paranormal investigation. Have you were you able to discuss any of this with them?
They were interested in, they were strictly sort of pop theology, all right? And it was really not very good theology. And I split with them in 1978 because I dared to question the gods of paranormal research. But
so they didn't buy this. They didn't buy this.
They were more interested in my theory that ghosts were souls in purgatory. They did not have a very scientific approach. I don't want to badmouth anyone, especially people to whom I was very close personally, no matter how many years it's been. But I had serious disagreements with them, and the methods were highly questionable from any scientific standpoint, in my opinion.
The thought of purgatory is interesting because that would also explain possibly the dimension or the multiverse.
Possibly. That was the very first theory I went on the very first case, which was at an old abandoned village in 1970, 71, and 72. And from day one, these people didn't seem to be dead at all, never mind existing in purgatory, but we were hearing the sounds of daily life, farm implements banging together, cows, dogs, and there was absolutely no one in this area. We checked it at great length. So again, it seemed like more having to do with time than with death. Mm-hmm. That was the experience from day one.
I got to go back, and I don't mean to jump around on you here, but as I'm thinking of questions as we go, people see the grays, what they call the aliens. Same as the people we're seeing that we think are ghosts.
Mm-hmm. The question is, we have to rethink or at least think about the fundamental definitions here. What do you mean by an alien? Something that's non-human. I mean, is a cat an alien because it's non-human? I mean, is that something utterly other, as H.P. Lovecraft might have said, might be a good definition. These alleged demons that I encountered in this house in 1974, the best term I can come up with for describing them is alien. They were utterly other. And they were hungry and they were hostile. And you look back at human folklore, Larry, folklore and myth, what are they? They're not just, cute stories. Folklore and myth are the vessels of the memory of the human race. And within that vessel are all sorts of experiences of vampires, which, thanks to Hollywood has come down to us as these counts and, but the actual ancient Babylonian word translates life-sucking ghost. That's just what these things were doing in this house and in 100 other cases I've dealt with. So again, I mean, our terms are fluid and arbitrary. What do you mean by alien? What do you mean by ghost? And it comes back on us sort of to our own interpretation. So in this case in Connecticut, the one we've been working on for 12 years, there was a photograph obtained by a security camera of this thing standing at someone's kitchen counter when nobody was home, and it's utterly alien. Now, whether it's from another planet, from another parallel world, both,
Well,
neither? I mean, these are all questions that are just have never been answered and maybe never will be.
and you're right. And I'm really willing to keep an open mind on this. And we can agree at this point, all of this is theory.
Oh, yeah, I agree on everything you said.
Would you also agree that maybe one of the plans of attack to maybe collect usable data would be to create a team, if you will? You don't have a formal team, but create a study that can maybe look at all these phenomena supposedly happening in these flap areas and find out if there is parallel or information that's the same.
Excuse me. Sorry. That is being done by several groups who are not well known. I'm part of it.
Well, I think that we need to get together and we need to make that happen to give us that information. And unfortunately, my friend, we are at the end of our showtime tonight. Paul, it's been great having you on. I've enjoyed this discussion. I hope to have you back in the future. Also, Paul will be with us at the 4th Annual Paranormal Para-Unity Conference in Ellesmere. So, folks, join us for that. With that, good night. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you on the other side.